Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for this open mic. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to have you guys here. An open mic is exactly what it sounds like. It's an open forum for you guys to bring up and ask the questions, comments, and observations about movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all that sorts of good stuff without me clouding it out with 6 or 7 big main topics. Good to have you guys here this afternoon, and hello to everybody who's already joining us in the live chat. So yeah, we're going to do that in just a second. If you guys want to fire in a question or a thought or an observation or a comment, the super chats are still open right now. I'll keep them open for a while longer here at any rate and then I'll probably shut them off when we go to our break. At any rate, guys, good to have you here. And we're going to get rolling here in your questions in just a second. But first, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this situation with the Guardians of the Galaxy opening weekend. Again, of course, it came in and made almost $120 million, made $118.4 million, which makes it the second biggest opening of the year. Now, there's some debate going on online that I, quite frankly, don't understand. I mean, clearly there are people with agendas, all right? I mean, that's just clear, because you can only come out and try to paint an opening of $120 million as anything but good. I'm not saying world-breaking amazing. I mean, it wasn't a $175 million opening, but $120 million, $118.4 million. Now, again, I brought this up on the show earlier, but I would like to remind everybody that, these people saying that this $118 million opening for Guardians of the Galaxy is some kind of disaster. These were the same. I brought up this graphic on the John Campea Show earlier today. These are the same people who, when Avatar 2 opened, were proclaiming that it was a total disaster, that it was a box office. I believe some of the headlines were box office meltdown and big pictures of James Cameron crying tears and all these sorts of things, right? These are the same people who are now saying that $118.4 million opening for Guardians of the Galaxy is some kind of disaster. Now, look, you know me. Last couple of years, I really don't have any love for Disney in my heart. Disney can go fuck themselves. That being said, I call it like I see it. When I see a movie that's pretty good, I'll say it's pretty good, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. When they put out a movie that looks like garbage and is not very good, like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I'll say that's not very good. But I don't really care. Like, it doesn't impact me one way or the other if a movie's good or a movie's bad. I may not like Disney very much, but I don't have any hope that Disney movies aren't good. Like, I go into every movie wanting it to be great. And so I don't have any particular interest if the movies are great. I have no particular interest if the movies are bad and fail. I just, as a film fan, I want to go in and watch good movies, and hopefully I like them. So with that being said, they made a good one with Guardians of the Galaxy 3. They haven't made a movie this good probably since Shang-Chi. But the thing is, again, the numbers are the numbers. It is the second biggest opening of the year. And to put it into context, it's the second biggest opening of the year in a current climate right now where comic book movies are struggling. Because comic book movies have been subpar lately. I mean, yes, you've had some good ones, like Black Panther Wakanda Forever was a good one. But even though that was a good one, and a very, very difficult movie to make, given the circumstances that their main lead star and character in Chadwick Boseman passed away, it was not nearly as good as the first Black Panther. Thor: Love and Thunder was not nearly as good as Ragnarok. I don't think Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness was as good as the first Doctor Strange. I like Black Adam, but Black Adam struggled. And, was a, box office flop, made under $400 million. Shazam 2, which is a movie I actually quite liked, but there's no way around it. That movie was an unmitigated flop, right? That's the scenario. That is the current context in which Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has come out. And it managed to be the number 2 biggest. We're almost halfway through the year. And it managed to end up as the number 2 biggest box office opening, only behind Super Mario Brothers. And I've been telling you guys forever that Mario Brothers was going to finish with more money than Guardians of the Galaxy because it's Mario Brothers. But I brought this up on the show a little bit earlier today. And and I want to bring this up again because I think this is relevant here. When the people who will point at, we brought this up on the show earlier, the people who will point at Guardians and try to make it out to be some kind of failure, they'll say, and their only argument is, well, that's not that much more. It's $12 million more, but they'll say that's not much more than what Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania did opening weekend, and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania lost money, therefore Guardians of the Galaxy is going to lose money, therefore Guardians of the Galaxy is a flop, right? Well, that logic makes no sense. And again, I bring up these statistics, these numbers. All these are movies, Marvel Cinematic movies, by the way. All these are Marvel Cinematic movies that made less than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did on their opening weekend, and yet they all went on to make really good amounts of money. Ant-Man 2 opened with $75 million, went on to make $622 million. Doctor Strange made $85 million opening weekend, went on to make $677. Spider-Man Far From Home made $92 million on its opening weekend, went on to make $1.1 billion. Spider-Man Homecoming made $117 million, which is less than Guardians of the Galaxy 3, went on to make $880 million. Guardians 1 made $94 million opening weekend, went on to make $772 million, and so on and so forth, right? Look, this is an opinion. These are facts. These are statistics. So the notion that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 making 118.4 is some kind of disaster, that is clearly somebody trying to put a spin on it because they have an agenda. I mean, it just clearly is. Could Guardians 3 have made more opening weekend? Well, sure. But given, again, like I said, the current context that we're in with comic book movies struggling, they're not making the type of money they used to make, the product has been mediocre at best lately, all that kind of stuff. The fact that it made nearly $120 million opening weekend is pretty damn good. And by the way, I mentioned this morning too, and it should be mentioned here again. Just as it's preposterous and asinine to suggest the movie making $118.4 million on its opening weekend is somehow a flop, because that is asinine. It would be equally as asinine to suggest that just because it made $118.4 million, that automatically means it's going to be a huge blockbuster smash hit. That would be equally asinine, right? We'll see what's going to happen come weekend number 2. But again, like I mentioned this morning, the big difference between Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, aside from the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 made more than 16 million more, or 12 million more than Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania did in this opening weekend, is that Quantumania wasn't good and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is. That's subjective, of course, but you get my drift. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania had a critic score that was in the 40s. In the 40s. That's a little one for all of you out there who just claim critics always just like Marvel films. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania has a critic score in the 40s. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has a critic score in the 80s. Also, what Guardians 3 has that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania didn't have is 95% audience rating. A 95% audience rating. An A cinema score. You know, all these types of things. In other words, the difference between Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is good and Quantumania was not, and that's going to have a big, big part to play in how much money that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is going to go on to make, because Guardians of the Galaxy is going to have a couple other things that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania didn't have. It's going to have excited hype coming out of the movie. Quantumania didn't really have that. Not on any scale. It's going to have more people going back for repeat viewings because of that 95% critic or audience rating. It's going to have, when those people go back, they're going to drag out their friends and they're going to spread big positive word of mouth. And we see that happen. Pardon me, we're going to see that happening. And the fact of the matter is, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania never had any of those things. It is an absolute simpleton approach to try to just go, oh, well, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which was not good, made 106 million opening, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 made 118. Those aren't too far off. Well then, since Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania flopped, that means Guardians will too. I mean, that is such a What's the name of Ben Stiller's character in Tropic Thunder? Simple Bob or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Do any of you guys remember the name of that character? I would love it if you could throw it in the live chat here. But that just looking at Simple Jack. Okay. Thank you, William Foggy and Brandon Metro and Hot Moms Podcast. Simple Jack. That is basically something Simple Jack would say, right? Well, that had 106. That's it. Oh, therefore, God. Anyway. And again, it would be equally as Simple Jack to say that it's going to be a huge blockbuster hit. We don't know. My only point here is that to point at $118.4 million opening weekend and say that in and of itself is a disaster and it means the movie's going to flop. Okay. Every statistic and fact points otherwise, but hey, whatever. All right. We'll see. Anyway, so that's just kind of my take on that. Anyway, guys, I'd like to know your point of this and thoughts about it. And, we'll see how it goes. And I don't know. That just is what it is. All right. With that down, guys, let's go over and start taking your questions here, shall we? So let's get things started off here. We are going to start with My Comic Planet, who writes in, with Jonathan Majors due to appear in court tomorrow, how do you see this playing out? Do you think the DA will move forward? Huge day for Majors' career. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be massive. All right, absolutely massive. When it comes to the court and legal stuff like this, what we as fans always have to understand is that we probably see 5% of the actual information that are sitting in these files and briefs and folders on the DA's desk. Right. So we can have our own opinions about that based around that 5% of the information that we have, but we always have to be cognizant of the fact that we don't know 95% of the information, right? We just always have to be aware of that we probably don't know 95% of the information. So it's very, very difficult to say what the DA is going to do tomorrow. Because a couple of big things could happen. Number one, the DA could go into court and say, Your Honor, after we've reviewed the facts at hand, and after we've reviewed the evidence at hand, and after we've conducted our own investigation, we have determined that there is not enough here. There's not cause to pursue charges against Jonathan Majors. We are therefore dropping the charges. That could happen. And if that does happen, that is huge. That is huge for Jonathan Majors. That is huge implications for Marvel moving forward. It means their whole plan with Kang and everything can go on and keep happening and all this kind of stuff. It would be massive. I don't know if that's going to happen tomorrow, because if the DA felt that, you don't need to wait for the first court appearance to do that. Like, the DA could have dropped all the charges yesterday and could have dropped the charges today and could have dropped the charges last week. That doesn't mean they won't do that tomorrow. I'm just saying, I'm hoping that's what happens. We'll see. But if the DA goes into that court tomorrow and says, Your Honor, we the people feel that there is enough discoverable evidence, and there is enough facts here that warrants charges against Jonathan Majors. Well, then that's pretty big the other way. So, honestly, man, asking me what will happen tomorrow, I don't know, because I don't have 95% of the information, but we are going to be keeping our eye on it very, very closely. Very, very closely. So we'll see. All right. Next up, we got The Empire Strikes Backstreet writes, one of two. I rewatched the start of X-Men Days of Future Past, and it's basically a scary future where the racists and the bigots win, and how that could very much potentially be our future if we're not vigilant. Yeah, but listen, there's a lot of comic book movies and fiction and science fiction that have that exact same message, right? There's a lot of science fiction and fiction in general paint that same picture and say that same message. And it's, it's concerning when you look at your own culture and you see your own culture like falling back into that, like stuff that we as a culture struggled for decades and decades and decades to get out of. Now we see more and more people trying to drag us as a culture and as a society back, like backwards. And it always comes with dangerous repercussions. And you know what they say about history, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And I don't know, we'll see. All right, next up. We got The Empire Strikes Back. She says, Hub, the one to watch porn. Max, where to watch HBO? Hub. My Comic Planet writes, I've been seeing a lot of posts from writers online getting emotional, pleading to just get a fair wage to pay their bills. It's been a hard watch. I mean, listen, I think there are many, 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 many facets of this writer strike that we as average film fans don't really take into consideration. I mean, what we as film fans, what people in general like to do is just like to see black and white. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? When in reality, they are, to quote the movie, 50 Shades of Grey, right? Listen, I'm not going to dispute the fact that as I read through the things put out by the Writers Guild and the things put out by the Producers Association, I'm not going to lie. There are certain points in which the producers do make valid arguments, all right? I'm not going to deny that. There are. They raise some valid points and some valid concerns on their side that is absolutely legit, okay? Legit issues that they have. That being said, I personally I do side more with the Writers Guild on this, because while the reality of how television programming gets made today is different than the reality of how television program got made 10 years ago. That's all true, and that's valid. The base reality is you still cannot not allow a scenario and a situation where you are having the backbone creative people of who make your content barely be able to get by, even if they're working. Like that's not right. I literally had a writer of a very notable television show that you would absolutely know, back when I hired Taylor to be my assistant, applied to be my assistant. Because even though they were working on a highly acclaimed show, they were having trouble making ends meet. So I get what the producers are saying when they say the Writer Guild has to understand that how shows are made today is different. I get it, and they're right. But you need to take that truism and still fit it into a scenario where you're going to get these people who create your shows to be fairly compensated, right? So there's got to be compromise here. Both the producers and the Writers Guild are going to have to make some compromises, but at the end of the day, they need to come up with a solution that, number one, recognizes the realities that how television is made today is different, but number two, recognizes that the basic needs of these writers needs to be addressed. And so I think that's why they're both far off. And I have hope that this writer strike can end quickly, but I don't think that it will. I don't think it will end quickly. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. All right. Where are we at here? Next up, we got Future Millionaire, who writes, Hey, John, I was thinking about The God of War heading to Amazon and the lack of successful shows there. With a few exceptions. The Boys, are you nervous they could handle it? I would have preferred HBO. I think Amazon has done some tremendous stuff. Amazon has had some high profile. I mean, Amazon doesn't create as much stuff as a lot of the other services do. But when they do create stuff, they often put out some real gems. One of the best shows of the past 5 years has been The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And I'm telling you, listen, I get it. To many of you, you look at The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on the surface and you look at it and you go, that doesn't look like it's a show for me. I totally understand. Totally understand, because I looked at The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and thought, that doesn't really look like it's a show for me. But it's fantastic. It is so freaking good. It is so very, very good of a show that you really do need to go and check that out. And like you pointed out, they also made The Boys. And the thing is, they've had other shows as well that have been like top notch shows. Now, does that mean I think they're going to do the God of War and they're going to make it amazing? Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe yes, maybe no, but I do believe when I look at their track record of the shows they've been able to create, that they've got a pretty good track record, hits and misses, but they've got some really, really good hits. And so I'm going to be really, really interested to see how. Now, look, HBO is the crown jewel, the highest of high standards in making great television, right? So obviously, any show that comes out, I would love to see it come out on HBO because they're the absolute number one best. But a lot of great stuff comes out on other things too. So here's hoping. Here's hoping, fingers crossed. All right. Stephen Wolf writes, hey, John. Was I the only one who thought when the High Evolutionary put the turtle, we're not going to talk about spoiler questions. Sorry about that, Stephen. Gannon writes, when you retire, is there any chance you do, somebody just pointed, I kind of bring this up. Gannon writes, when you retire, is there any chance you do one video a week talking news and your thoughts on recent movies? I will miss the John Campea Show when it's gone. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure many of you do, I'm now starting to look ahead to my retirement. And, you know, a lot of people, John, you're too young to retire. True, but that's when you want to retire. I want to retire when I'm young. So, because I got a lot of things I want to do, and I want a lot of time to be able to do those things and to enjoy those things. You know, I obviously, like a lot of people, I want to travel. Ann and I have some nonprofits that we work with a little bit. I'd like to be able to have more time to work with those nonprofits. I want to get more involved in my community. I want to do, there's a lot of things like that. But that's not anytime imminent. Like I'm lucky enough that I'm in a position that I could retire today if I wanted to. I just keep doing it because I enjoy doing it. And so right now I'm kind of aiming for maybe sometime in 2025, maybe sometime in 2026. I'm kind of aiming about around that'll be the rough time that I retire. But don't get me wrong. I could wake up next week and go, you know what? I'm not having fun doing this anymore. I'm just going to retire today. I mean, that's very unlikely it's going to happen, but I'm saying I could theoretically do that. But even when I retire, whether that's in 2025 or 2026, whatever, I will probably still do something just because I'll want to, you know, whether that's going to be a weekly podcast, or whether that's going to be, you know, a 2 or 3 time a month YouTube video. I mean, I'll probably go to podcasting. I'll probably stick to podcasting, but I think at the very minimum, what I would probably do is do a once a week podcast. I think I would at least do that. And listen, look, I'm going to talk to you straight here, right? I'm going to give you a little inside information here. There have been times over the past couple of years, I'm not going to lie to you, that I have considered taking the John Campea Show off of YouTube and just doing it as a daily podcast. Now, I know what a lot of you might be saying. Well, why the hell would you do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons I've thought about that, doing that over the years. The biggest thing of which is that the ease. It is so much easier to do a podcast than it is to do a video show. Like 1,000 times easier. The amount of stress and the sheer amount of work hours and the sheer amount of all that kind of stuff would be so much simpler if we just did it as a podcast. The second reason is, unlike when I started the John Campea Show, ad rates for audio podcasts are often better than the ad rates on YouTube. I'll say that again. Unlike when I started, because it used to be totally reverse. Like it used to be that the ad rates you could get by doing YouTube videos were 95% of the time way higher than the money you'd make on doing podcasts. But that is different today. Today you can actually make as much money on podcast with fewer listeners than you do on YouTube. So when you combine those two things about how it's 1,000 times easier to do a podcast than to do a live video show, with the fact that you don't need as many listeners on podcasts as you do on YouTube in order to make the same amount of money. It's been tempting over the years to do that. Obviously, I have not done that, but I'm just saying it's been tempting. So yeah, I could see myself doing that when it comes time to retire. I could see myself doing that at some point. We'll see, of course. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, Donaldo Martinez writes, I just watched Battlestar Galactica for the first time, and wow, Lee Adama's performance during the Baltar's trial was amazing. That is, to me, the greatest single television show of all time. Not the original 1980s, late 1970s Lauren Green Battlestar Galactica, but Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. To me, it's the best television ever made, in my opinion. Everybody's going to have a different opinion about that. For me, it is the single best show ever made. And yeah, during the trial of President Baltar, because he was on trial for things he did when he was president during the Cylon occupation of New Caprica. Oh my God, that dude who played Lee Adama, he was so good. He could have gotten Emmy considered. I don't know if he did get Emmy nominations for that or not, but he was so good. All right, that's that, Donaldo. Next up, Donaldo says, Disney's still doing Shogun. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's already shot. If I'm not wrong, I think Shogun has already been shot. It's destined to go on to Hulu. And as far as I know, it's shot and in post-production. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's already shot and in post-production. So fingers crossed we get to see that soon. Guys, you know how much I love the original Shogun. I've been saying for years I want them to revisit Shogun, so I'm so glad it's coming back. All right. Luke1234 writes, when you retire, what will happen to all the gear? Don't laugh. I thought about that. I think it was like last week. I was here alone in the office. Everybody else had gone home, and I was still here doing some stuff. And as I'm walking through the main studio, which is out the door there, and I'm looking at all the gear, the thought hit me. What the hell am I going to do with all this stuff once I'm not doing the show anymore? Because I'm not going to have the studio. I'm not going to be renting the studio anymore. Where the hell, number one, I thought, I got nowhere to put all this stuff. And number two, what am I going to do with all that? So here's what I think I'm going to do. What I will probably do is I will spend a day or so going through because I've got like 6 years worth of accumulated gear and tech and all that kind of stuff in here. What I will probably do is spend a day going through all of it, and then figure out what do I want to hold on to. For instance, I have a Mac Studio. I have a Mac Studio computer. It's the most powerful computer I own. I will probably keep that. I've got two 34-inch monitors in front of me. Are these 34 or are these 42? You know what? They might be 42-inch monitors. Anyway, I've got two, so I'll probably keep a couple of those. I'll probably keep one of the cameras, a couple of the lights, maybe one of the mixing boards. But guys, I'm going to have like 10 cameras, 6 or 7 mixing boards, 4 or 5 full computer systems, some PC, some Mac, Macs computers. I'm going to have like mics and desks. And I'm going to have so much crap. So here's what I think I'm going to do. After I go through everything and pick out a couple of things that I'll still want to keep and hold on to. So I can still do a weekly podcast, or I can still do the odd YouTube video if I wanted to. I will probably then announce an open house. I will give out the address to the studio, and I will say on this day and this day, we are having a open house yard sale, John Campea Show yard sale, where I'll invite anybody who lives, within a couple hours to come down, go through the studio and make an offer on something. Oh, you want that microphone? Okay, that's a $300 microphone. I'll let you have it for $70, right? Oh, you want that computer? That's a $5,000 computer. I'll give it to you for, I don't know, $1,500. I don't know. So I'll probably have a big open yard sale. Big open yard sale. So yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do. All right. Next up, we've got Stephen Wolf, who writes, One or two. I never understood when people say, oh, they could have fleshed out his character more. It looks like that is the going concern with Adam Warlock. In life, we have daily interactions with people who may affect the outcome of our day. I don't say to myself, wow, let me know that grandma, I just help I don't say to myself, wow, let me know that grandma I just help cross the street. I'm not quite sure I'm following you there, but you said there's a part 3? Oh, part 3. It's an outcome that took place that may needed to have happened. The movie isn't called Adam Warlock and Guardians of the Galaxy. The role was played well and served its purpose. Okay, rant over. See, I absolutely get what you're saying. In the sense that there are going to be characters in movies that are meant to be small side characters, right? Absolutely. It's like, they didn't do enough with this character. Well, they had 8 other characters they needed to do stuff with. That kind of makes sense. Now, I will say that I think it's different with Adam Warlock. Because they played Adam... Well, first of all, in the comics, Adam Warlock is a very, very serious character. Okay? A very big character. But they also made kind of a big deal that Adam Warlock was going to be in the movie. Right? And with them making such a big deal out of it, and the fact that Adam Warlock had a pretty strong presence in the trailers, I think it was understandable that many of us, myself included, went into the movie with kind of an assumption that we were going to get a little bit more of Adam Warlock. And I also think when people say they should have fleshed that character out more, it means 2 things. One, it means more screen time. Like when you hear people say that character should have been fleshed out more, number 1, it usually means that they could have used a little more screen time. But number 2 is it may not have necessarily needed more screen time. They just maybe should have done a better job with the screen time they had. And for me personally, it's a little bit of number 1. Like I maybe thought Adam Warlock could have had a little bit more screen time in the movie. But for me personally, I think it's what they did with the character that was a little bit unsatisfying. Right? I didn't particularly like the character. I never felt any empathy for the character. Well, I don't know. No, I almost went into a spoiler there. So I did think, I was one of those people that I did think they maybe should have done a little bit more with him. At least a little bit of a better job. You know what I'm saying? But hey, man, it's all subjective. Thanks for sharing your point of view on that, Steven. I really appreciate it, man. All right. Kyle Schneider says, the Meg 2 trailer later, also Strays got delayed. Did Strays get delayed? Oh, Ray's going to be so sad if that's true. Yeah, I didn't know when they were going to put out the Meg 2 trailer. They showed us some footage of Meg, including the Meg trailer. That movie looks so ridiculous. It just... Actually, has the Meg 2 trailer come out? Is it now out? Just guys in the live chat, just let me know if the trailer's actually out yet, because I know it's coming. They're saying, yes, it is out. Okay. And just because I haven't seen it online yet, I only saw, the thing. Is it the same thing? Is it the same one where a giant megalodon comes hurling out of the water and is coming down on Jason Statham, and Jason Statham stops him with his leg? With a Jason Statham kick? James Argenta is saying, yes, he kicks a shark. I mean, I'm watching that thing. And I'm like, that shark is about 72 tons and Jason Statham stops him with his kick. I'm like, oh my God. I'll be honest with you. I was not a big fan of the first Meg. I love Jason Statham. I love Statham. I was not a big fan of the first Meg. And I don't know, man. There's ridiculous fun, and then there's just ridiculous. And I don't know, man. I kind of feel like this one looks just ridiculous. So I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see. All right. Next up, we got James Argenta, who writes, what movie do you think will be this summer's Top Gun 2 and overperform at the box office? My guess is Indy 5. I don't know that I'd say Indy 5 simply because I think I've already got high expectations for Indy 5. I think Indy 5 is a potential billion-dollar film. I'm not saying it will hit $1 billion. I'm saying I think it is a movie that has the potential to do that. So it can't be, I wouldn't be able to call it overperforming if it hit $1 billion. I mean, I personally think it's going to fall a little bit short of $1 billion, but if it hits $1 billion, I can't really say it overperformed because I think it has the potential to do that. Stavros in the live chat just called out the movie, and that's Transformers. Now, Transformers box office trajectory has been in a nosedive, including with the incredible movie Bumblebee, which really didn't make much money. As a matter of fact, how much did Bumblebee make here? Let me just look this up. Bumblebee box office. Let me see what it has to say here. Bumblebee didn't even make $500 million. Bumblebee made $468 million, which, you know what, $468 million is not terrible. Especially considering that Bumblebee was coming off of some really, a long string of very, very terrible Transformers movies. And maybe the high quality of the Bumblebee movie will help this new Transformers Rise of the Beast movie. Look, I just personally think Rise of the Beast looks pretty good. I have liked what I've seen so far. And, oh yeah, Bumblebee, a fair in the live chat. Bumblebee made more than Black Adam did. Something to keep in mind. Made more than Black Adam. So yeah, you know what? I think you're right, Stavros. I think the one that maybe has the potential to surprise us and overperform, it won't be Fast X because we're expecting that to be huge. It won't be Indy 5 because I think we're kind of expecting that can be huge. I think the one that maybe nobody's really expecting to do super great, but has the potential to maybe do really great, like hit $700, $800 million, might be Transformers. That's a good call, Stavros. All right. Next up, we've got Christ Courage, who writes, saw Guardians 3 and loved it, and it made me want to hug my truck dog all night. Don't laugh. I remember after seeing Guardians 3, I was talking to Ray. I didn't see it with Ray. He saw it separately, but I remember talking to him. He said, I just wanted to go home and see the dogs, man. I just wanted to go home and see the dogs. And that's, you know what? Seriously, movies that can be emotionally resonant with us, that make us want to go and call our mom or hug our spouse or go pet our dogs or something like that. That tells you that the emotional levels of the movie worked. And the fact that you and a lot of other people I know that after watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3 just said they just wanted to go home and snuggle up with their pet, whether it's a real pet like a dog or some kind of vermin infestation like a cat. The important thing is people wanted to go home and snuggle with their pets. And that to me is as strong as evidence as anything can be that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 really worked on an emotional level, like really, really well. All right. Next up, we did the Stephen Wolf's. Now we're at Unfinished Sentence. Right. Did you see the news of Mario Brothers movie becoming the top 5 highest grossing animated film of all time? No, but I saw the numbers. Remember when we did the numbers, we did on the show the other week, we had this big graphic that showed, you know, Mario Brothers was number 11 at the time, but we said it only has a little bit to go. Like even though Mario was number 11 all time, it only had a little bit to go to jump up into number 6, number 5, things like that. Like there's not a lot of difference between what was number 5 and what was number 10, right? A very small amount of difference. And so, yeah, we knew it would get into the top 5. The question is after top 5, how much higher will it go? So we'll see how long, if any real length, that's going to take it. All right. Next up, thanks for that Unfinished Sentence. Chuck the Mystery writes, hey, John, have you watched any of the Fatal Attraction series on Paramount Plus yet? I have not. I haven't. Or Love and Death with Elizabeth Olsen on Max. Olsen is Emmy level again. Now, like you guys know, I really don't have a lot of time for TV. So I watch some TV, but I have to be pretty selective because of the limited amount of time I have. So I watch Ted Lasso. We watch Succession. We watch, there's a couple other things we're watching, but I haven't even had a chance yet to watch Star Wars Visions. Is that what it's called? The animated shorts thing. I haven't even had a chance to watch that yet. So I don't watch a whole hell of a lot of TV, but I will tell you this, both of those, Fatal Attraction looks really interesting to me because I love Lizzie Kaplan. I love her. And Elizabeth Olsen is always something you got to watch for. So I have not seen those yet, but I hope to watch those at some point. All right. Chuck the Mystery also writes, speaking of new shows, I thought Citadel was a major letdown. I love Richard Madden, Priyanka, and Stanley Tucci, but for me, the Russos have another miss. Look, I haven't given Citadel a fair shot yet, but I did sit down to watch the first episode, and I never watched the second one. I thought the trailers looked pretty good for Citadel. I thought like a lot of it, you got a fantastic cast. You've got all that great stuff. You, of course, have the Russo brothers involved. And again, I acknowledge that only watching one episode is not yet giving the show a fair shot. I acknowledge that. I totally do. But yeah, I watched the first episode. I'm like, Listen, I'll tell you what. I love Joe and Anthony Russo. They have always been very, very nice to me. They have come into my studio several times. They sent me public messages. They're great. I love them. But I think they have struggled with creating really quality content since working with Kevin Feige. I mean, when Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers are working together, magic happens, right? Absolute magic. Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. When Feige and Joe and Anthony Russo are working together, it's magic. But Joe and Anthony on their own, I have not seen a single thing they've produced or directed that I have really loved yet. I'm not saying they're not capable of it. Of course they're capable of it. They're creative geniuses, but it's been a bit of a struggle. And I think I'm also think this has been a bit of a struggle for them as well. I think Citadel is the next thing that's a little bit of a struggle for them because again, and like I said, I know I've only watched one episode. Maybe if I give it more episodes, I'll catch on to it. But yeah, for me, it hasn't really worked yet. All right. Guys, there are more questions to come. Just so you know, the super chats are going to be turned off in just a moment here. So if you've still got a super chat you want to send in, you've got like 30 seconds to do it. And then I'm turning off super chats. So there is a whole bunch more for us to get to, and we will get to all those remaining questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second here and thank the sponsor of today's episode of Open Mic, my mobile service provider, and they should be your mobile service provider too, the good folks at Mint Mobile. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, your utility bills and favorite streaming services, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know that ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been saving almost 70% a month over my old phone plan. For people looking for extra savings this year, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Open Mic. Hey guys, listen, I meant what I said. I am spending like over 60% less than I used to on my cell phone bill. We spend way too much on cell phones. Guys, go down into the description of this video. You'll find the link to Mint Mobile. Go sign up. I have not regretted it. You won't regret it either. All right. With that down, guys, let's keep things rolling here now and get back to your questions. We're going to pick things up here with Mike's Movie Madness, who writes, John, I'm looking forward to The Acolyte, but I wonder that since this will be set in the Old Republic era, is it set in the Old Republic era? I don't think it is. I think it's set in the High Republic era, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, will we see prequel style lightsaber fights or something that isn't overly choreographed? I mean, listen, I think every single Star Wars show and everything has their own style of lightsaber combat. I think they all have their own style and they all have their own approach. I think we can look forward to seeing some things that are very choreographed. And by the way, that's not a bad thing. The John Wick combat scenes are all very, very choreographed. Super, super choreographed. And that's not a bad thing at all. So yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to say. It's hard to say for sure because we haven't seen anything from the Acolyte yet. But I have a feeling we're going to see some very high intensity lightsaber fights. Let's put it this way. If we can get lightsaber fights that are on par with the Obi-Wan Vader fight at the end of the Obi-Wan series, which was not very good, but it had a terrific final fight. If we can get fights on that level, I'll be pretty happy, and we'll see how that goes. All right. Let's see here. That was Mike's movie madness. Hold on a second. This is getting a little unruly here. Give me a moment to try to see if I can fix this a bit. Give me a moment here. I'm going to get this fixed up a little bit. And is that better? I think that's better. Okay, let's keep going here. Chuck the Mystery writes, based on some of your $1 billion discussion not having the Flash on them, now that you've seen the film, over under 30% that it will join the club. I do not believe Flash will join the $1 billion club. It's good enough to be a $1 billion film. I loved it. But the reality is, what has been the trajectory of DC films at the box office? They've completely tanked. Black Adam made under 400 million. I don't even know if Shazam made 200 million. I mean, I haven't even looked for a while, but I don't even know that Shazam has made 200 million. So, the idea that in a reality that we've seen these DC movies really, really, really struggle, it does not matter how good The Flash is. And The Flash, in my opinion, is very, very good. It's really excellent. But you can't look at the financial results that Suicide Squad had, that Black Adam has had, that Shazam 2 has had. I mean, you can look at those and say The Flash can do better than those. Yes, but it's a really, really big leap. It's a big, big leap to go from those numbers to $1 billion, right? Now, somebody just said in the live chat, Affair said in the live chat, Aquaman made $1 billion out of nowhere. No, it didn't. I mean, I wasn't expecting Aquaman to make $1 billion, but DC movies were making 600, 700 some odd million dollars, right, at the time. So to go from that to $1 billion wasn't that big of a jump. I mean, I didn't think Aquaman would make $1 billion, but it did, but it wasn't that big of a jump. That's a very, very different situation than we're in right now. We're in a situation right now where these movies are making 200 million and 300 something million. It's a very, very different scenario. So I don't think you can compare it to the Aquaman situation. So, I mean, again, I think Flash will do better than Black Adam did, and better than Shazam 2 did, and better than Suicide Squad did. But I don't think it'll make $1 billion. It won't make $1 billion. I don't think it'll make $1 billion. I hope I'm wrong, because it deserves to be $1 billion movie. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and cheer for it to get there. Andy Muschietti deserves it. He made a fantastic movie. But I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. So no, I still will not put Flash on my $1 billion potential movies. I don't think it is a potentially $1 billion movie. Not right now, at any rate. But we'll see. All right, thanks for that, Chuck the Mystery. Up Trumbra writes, so tell me more about that time in Greg's bedroom. LOL. Love the live show on Sunday, John. Much love. Thank you for that. So obviously we did our live show, me, Greg Alba from the Real Rejects, and Christian Harloff. We did our live show in Burbank yesterday. So what he's talking about is, I was saying to the audience, I said, hey, listen, I was telling the audience how great it is for us to do it with, a live audience. I said, the three of us do these crappy little YouTube shows in these crappy little rooms that we try to make them look good. And Greg said, my room's not crappy. And I said, Greg, I've been in your room, because I have been in Greg's room. I've been to his house. I said, Greg, I've been in your room. And all of a sudden people are like, hold on, wait a minute, what? I'm like, not like that. Not like that. So anyway, that's what Uptumbra is referring to. That's what's happened to that. Yes, when you say things and instantly regret how you said them 5 seconds later. All right. HV3 writes, all 3 of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are in my top 5 Marvel movies. What an incredible trilogy. Yeah, I mean, none of them are in my top 5 MC. Like, I love the Guardians trilogy, and I absolutely love Guardians of the Galaxy 3. For me, I don't think any of them are in my top 5. But there it is. James Gunn just created an absolutely incredible series of films, and yeah, absolutely loved it. Absolutely love Guardians of the Galaxy 3. All right, The Moon writes, hey, John, what do you think are the chances of the directors and actors unions going in the strike? Decent chances. Now, look, the other day, our own Chris Carr is a member of SAG. She is a member of the Screen Actors Guild, the Actors Union. And when I asked her, like, because they're negotiating with the producers right now, I'm like, is there actually a chance the actors may go on strike too? And Chris was just like, yup. So I'm not going to say anything's a guarantee, but it looks to me like the chances are decent that the Actors Guild will probably go on strike as well. And if the writers and the actors go on strike, well, there's nothing for the directors to do, so they might as well go on strike too. So I'm not going to say it's any kind of a guarantee. I'm still hopeful all this will be resolved before it comes to that. But unfortunately, it does look like there is a decent chance that all 3 end up being on strike. Yeah. All right. Next up. Dante Sriracha writes, showing some love. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was incredible. Bring on the filthy. Thank you so much for that, Dante. And yeah, I was so happy. I mean, I said this before, but it's worth saying again. How long has it been since I have been able to come out of 2 back-to-back comic book movies where I really loved both of them? It's been a while. It's been a while. And so to have watched The Flash and loved it, and then be able to watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and loved it. It's been a while since I've seen 2 comic book movies back to back where I loved both of them. I've seen a bunch that I've liked, and I've seen some that kind of disappointed, but to see 2 back to back that I love, and now with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse coming out, have a chance of seeing 3 comic book movies in a row that I absolutely love. So, yes, so we'll see. All right. Next up. We've got Huck Pop's Culture Cafe who writes, hey, John, when will you be addressing your sponsorship program? I did submit my application video and I hope to get considered. Thanks and bring on the filthy. That's a good question, Huck. So here's what happened. We are doing here, because, I'm always encouraging I think all movie fans should either do a blog, a podcast, or a YouTube channel. Doesn't matter if you have 5 people listening, watching, or reading, or 500 people listening, watching, or reading. I think it's a great thing to do if you're a film fan. So to back that up, we are doing the John Campea Show YouTube sponsorship program, where we asked people if they wanted to be considered for our sponsorship program to send in an application. And we're going to take a YouTube channel and we're going to sponsor them for $1,000 a month for 2 months. Plus, me and Robert Meyer Burnett are going to do a couple of Zoom call coaching sessions with the YouTuber in question. And now here's the delay. Here's the problem. We put out the application form. I was expecting 15 to 20 applicants. All right. We ended up getting over 100. And so that's a lot of time. Like, I sat back and looked at that, and like, a part of the application process was we asked people to send in like a 5-minute video explaining, what their vision for doing YouTube is and why they want the sponsorship program and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you guys do the math. Just 5 minutes out of over 100 of them. How many hours is that? Not to mention going through the rest of the application. I got kind of overwhelmed. So what I did last week was I got Jonathan and Ray to take all those applications, and I had them go through the applications, and I told them narrow it down to 7. So I told Jonathan and Ray, go through it and narrow down what you guys think are the top 7 applications. And then I will go through those 7 applications. So the guys have done it. They've narrowed it down to the last 7. So tonight, I mean, obviously last night we had our big live event out in Burbank, so I couldn't do anything yesterday. So tonight, I'm going to start going through those 7, and I'm hoping that by Wednesday, we're going to be able to announce who the first ever recipient of the YouTube sponsorship program will be. So we're hoping to be able to announce that on, if not Wednesday, then definitely by Thursday or Friday. So it'll 100% be this week. We're hoping by Wednesday we'll be able to do that. All right. Thanks for that, Hux Pop Culture. Next, we got Jacob Hirsch, who writes, how would you rank the Guardians movie's soundtrack? Mine is 2-1-3. I would say 1-3-2. Yeah, I think for me it would be 1. I still think 1 is the best one. So 1, 3, and 2. Let's see. Next up, we've got Never Lose Your Nerd Rights. Guardians 3 was great. Went too far with the amount of jokes, but that's James Gunn. I still like the first one, but most, but this is my second favorite. I disagree with you that there were too many jokes. You know how I always say winning cures everything? If the jokes are funny, then it's not too many jokes. If you balance it out with heavier moments, then it's not too many jokes. And unlike Thor: Love and Thunder, which did not balance out the sheer amount of jokes with enough truly emotional weight, and whose jokes only worked about 1 out of every 3 worked. So I'll tell you what, if Thor: Love and Thunder, if every single joke was hilarious and they balanced it out with some heavier emotional grounding, I think people would have thought Thor: Love and Thunder was magnificent. But only about 1 out of every 3 jokes really worked, and it didn't have that balance. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I thought almost all the jokes were hilarious. And so when they do a joke and it makes you laugh, then that works. That's a check mark. That's a win. And also, there was so much crying in the movie theater that I was in. So James Gunn this time around really did a great job. He did a much better job than Taika Waititi did with Thor: Love and Thunder in balancing out the heavy emotional grounding stuff with the humor. And then when he did use humor, it was always funny. It was always hilarious. And yeah, so I disagree that he went too far with the jokes. I thought it totally worked and was entertaining, but again, all film is subjective, right? So what works for you may not necessarily work for me exactly, and what works for me exactly may not necessarily work exactly for you. So we all have our own experience with it. But yeah, at the end of but I agree with you. It is my second favorite Guardians movie. Like Guardians 1 is still my favorite of the Guardians films. But yeah, I really did like it. All right, next up. Danny Vakur writes, Scott Mance is someone who is pushing the agenda that Guardians of the Galaxy didn't do well, where it'll have a big second weekend drop-off like Ant-Man. He says he wants a break from those films, but he can skip them. Well, I mean, here's the thing. When Scott Mance says something from that, he is saying it honestly. Scott Mance has no anti-Disney agenda. He has no whatever, right? Like, he does get tired of those things. I actually just had a chance to hang out with Scott a little bit at CinemaCon. I haven't seen Scott in a while, but Scott and I had a chance to catch up a bit when we were at CinemaCon. I mean, like, there are going to be people who legitimately don't think Guardians 3 is going to do well, right? And that's fair. Nothing wrong with that. But then there are people who are like the ones who put up all those videos about how Avatar: The Way of Water is a total box office disaster after its opening weekend, right? And of course, it's the number 3 all-time movie in the history of cinema. Scott is not one of those, all right? Scott's not one of those, like, at all. I mean, he just has his thoughts about it. He says it, but he is pushing no agenda. Believe me when I tell you, Scott Mance is pushing no agenda on anybody. All right. Nelson Alfaro, who sends in, what is CRC? I'm curious, does anybody know what CRC and that symbol is? What currency that is? I'm curious to know what country that's from. Anyway, Nelson writes, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Can wait to see The Flash. If it is a little better, at the end, this is what we want, good movies. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the thing, right? I've been trying to preach this gospel for so many years. Who gives a crap what corporate label is on a movie? Who gives a crap? I don't care if a movie has the Marvel label on it or the DC label on it or the Sony label on it or the Fox. I mean, Fox is owned by Disney now, but at the time, or the Fox. I don't give a crap. All I want to do is go into a movie theater and have a good time and have fun. That's what I want. And I'll tell you what, I went in and watched Flash, and the fact that I thought that movie was so good, had nothing to do with the fact that it had a DC corporate label on it. Had nothing to do with it. I loved Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and it had nothing to do with the fact that it had a Marvel corporate label on it. We all go into movies, man. At least what we should be doing is going into movies completely agnostic. We should go into movies completely agnostic. We shouldn't care about which corporation made it, which one's going to get rich off a scene. That should be not part of the equation. We should simply go into every movie experience and say, okay, a story is about to be told. I hope I like it. And whether we like it or not should not be influenced by whether, well, this is the corporate label I don't like, or, well, this is the corporate label I love. Who cares? And right now, I think we're about to get 3 comic book movies in a row. I think, because Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is coming out, where we're going to get 3 fantastic movies, all under different corporate labels. All under different corporate labels. And I think that's awesome. By the way, you guys in the live chat are saying that that currency that Nelson said was Costa Rican. I don't know if I've ever had a Costa Rican tip before. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate that very much, Nelson. All right. Suthius writes, depending on how big the Marvels opens, I do wonder if general audience is perhaps starting to or have lost interest in the MCU or certain characters. I don't believe that's true at all. See, I've been having this discussion for a while now. There is no such thing as comic book movie fatigue. Because if there was comic book movie fatigue, it would have happened after 5 years of constant comic book movies, or 7 years of constant comic book movies, or 10 years of constant comic book movies, or 12 years of constant comic book movies. But it never did. You want to know why? Because the movies were great. I mean, there was the odd stinker here and there, yes. But for the most part, for the past 15 years, comic book movies have been awesome. Whether it's DC, Marvel, whatever, like you be getting like for every one bad one, there's like 3 or 4 really good ones. And so no talk. All this talk of comic book movie fatigue, it's been around since the early 2000s, but it's never actually been anything, right? And it is no coincidence. I've been saying this all along, and it is still true. It is not a coincidence that the slump we're seeing with comic book movies right now just so happens to be coming at a time when comic book movies aren't very good. That's the cause. The cause is the fact that the quality has not been good. And when the quality drops, well, less people are going to come. They go to the movies, they don't have that great of a time, they're less likely to come back to the next one. And if they do come back to the next one and they don't have that great of a time, well, now that's 2 times in a row they didn't have that great of a time at a comic book movie. So they're less likely to come back to the next one. It has nothing to do with how long the comic book movies have been around. It's not about interest in comic book movies. It's all about, is this genre, when I go to a movie that is one of these genres, am I having a good time? And I would suggest that the ratio's been switched, whereas it used to be for every one bad one, you had 3 or 4 great ones. Today, it's like for every one great comic book movie in the last couple of years, you've had 3 or 4 okay to not so okay movies. And it's no coincidence that those things are happening at the same time. So, I mean, yeah, right now, comic book movies as a whole, not just Marvel. I mean, look at Black Adam and Shazam. Shazam didn't even hit $200 million. Black Adam didn't even hit $400 million. The Marvels is coming out at a time when comic book movies are struggling because the quality hasn't been great and therefore the box office has not been doing great. If you don't deliver quality product, people aren't going to keep coming out in the same numbers that they used to. Now, hopefully, if you're the Marvels, Guardians of the Galaxy kills it, and it is. It's already killing it with audiences, 95% audience rating. Hopefully Flash will kill it with audiences, and hopefully Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse will kill it with audiences. Then there will have 3 movies in a row that are all fantastic. And hopefully that will re-kick the momentum for movies like the Marvels or other comic book movies that are Blue Beetle, things like that are coming. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, that they're able to do that. All right. Thanks for that, Suthius. Let's see here. Next up, we got Alfredo, who writes, haven't heard much talk about Hypnotic with Ben Affleck opening this weekend. Have you heard anything about this film? Absolutely zero. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know it was opening up this weekend. Is it actually opening up this weekend? I've heard nobody talking about it. I've seen like no marketing put behind it. So I don't even know if it actually is opening up this week. Is it going to theaters? My God, if it is, and we're not even hearing about it, that's a terrible marketing campaign. Let's see. CJ Rebirth writes, thanks for answering my question at the event yesterday. I'm glad you were at the event yesterday, man. I appreciate that very much. And by the way, if we do another one of these live events, and I don't know if we are, but if we do another one of these live events, look, I can only speak for myself. I have a great time doing them. I hope for those of you who came to our live event or watched the live stream of the event, I hope you guys had fun too. But I hope all you guys will come in and join us for that as well. Let's see. Next up, got some people writing in their own political nonsense, so we're not going to pay attention to them. Jaden Ross writes, what is your dream movie crossover? Mine is Maleficent meets Jurassic World and Mary Poppins meets Fast and the Furious. I'll tell you, Jaden, what mine is. My dream movie one has always been, I mean, not always, but for many, 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 many years has been, and follow me here, Terminator and Matrix. Terminator and Matrix. That, and the reason I've always thought that Terminator and Matrix would be a terrific crossover is because those two movies, those two universes absolutely fit together. Think about it. The basic conceit of both films and both worlds is that you had a world that started to get over reliance on technology, and eventually the technology turned against them and all that kind of stuff, right? When you really think about it, you could easily say, you could end a Matrix movie with a tie-in to Terminator, and it would not feel all that jarring. It's not a perfect fit. I'm not saying it's a perfect fit. There are a couple of problems they'd have to work out, but I think it's something you could really work out. And therefore, yes, I believe that the one I would go for is a Terminator and Matrix one. All right. Thanks for that, Jaron. Next up, we have Dr. Stinky, who writes, I'm a big Marvel fan, but the Marvels does not look good. I love Iman, but Ms. Marvel, or Iman. I love Iman, but Ms. Marvel in the MCU is not my cup of tea. Comics, Miss Marvel is fun though. I mean, that's the thing, Dr. Stinky. It's all subjective, right? Like, not everything is going to work for everybody. Not everybody's going to love Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Not everybody's going to love Flash. Not everybody is going to love Black Adam. Not everybody's going to love Shazam 2. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the art, is that it hits us all in different ways. Now, I will say that my experience with Ms. Marvel is completely different. Ms. Marvel is one of the best things Marvel has done in a long time. It's beautiful, and it's warm, and it's charming, and it's delightful, and I love Ms. Marvel. I love that show so much. I think it's the second best thing that Marvel has had on Disney Plus. It might be the third or fourth best thing they've had that Disney has had on Disney Plus altogether. I mean, I'd have WandaVision ahead of it. I'd have Andor ahead of it. I'm not sure I'd have anything else ahead of it other than WandaVision, Andor, maybe Mandalorian season 1. The bottom line is this. I think the trailer looks really good. Now, I also, I've seen trailers to movies and I thought the trailers looked good, and then I ended up not thinking the movies were very good. And maybe that'll be the case with the Marvels. But I do think the Marvels look good, if for no other reason than Amal Vellani as Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. There's not many shows. If they said Ms. Marvel season 2 was coming out tomorrow, there's not many shows I would watch ahead of it. It's so fucking good. That show is so fucking good and charming and warm and delightful and makes your heart smile. Oh God, I love that thing. Love that thing. And then on top of that, you got Captain Marvel, who is the character of that. Her last movie made $1 billion at the box office. Now, I don't think the Marvels will make $1 billion at the box office. I just hope it's good. Whether it will be or not, we'll find out. All right. Let's see. Next up, we got My Comic Planet, who said, I just wanted to say that I paid for the movie club on Sunday. Oh, you watched one of the pay-per-view streams. Thank you, man. On Sunday, it was great seeing you guys. I live in Georgia, but maybe one day I'll get to see you guys in person. You know what's funny? My main, he's not really my business manager, but my main guy who works with me, who's kind of in charge of getting sponsorships for the channel. Like Jonathan is the main guy. Jonathan Voico pretty much runs everything around here. And he's really in one of his main responsibilities is he is our main liaison between us as a show and all of our sponsors, like making sure we have all the prerequisites, we have all the line items, we have everything. Jonathan Voico is the one who makes sure all that stuff runs smooth. But I have this business guy who's the one who gets us all the sponsors, right? Anyway, the reason I bring all that up is because that guy is also from Georgia, and he actually flew in for our event yesterday. So he was here in person. I'm actually going to run into Burbank and go have dinner with him tonight because I don't get to see him in person very often. Again, because he lives out in Georgia. But but anyway, My Comic Planet, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching the live stream yesterday. By the way, guys, it is still up. If you guys, I think it's going to be up for about a week. If you want to watch the event of me, Greg Alba, and Christian Harloff that we did yesterday, if you just go to moment.com/movie club, that's moment.com/movie club. It's still up there and you can go and watch the event that we did yesterday. Anyway, thanks for that, My Comic Planet. Appreciate that, man. All right, next up, Video King Arsid writes, in Ahsoka series and Thrawn will return, where are Luke, Leia, and Han? It's a big universe. Why would they be there? Like it's a really, really big universe. So why would they be there? So yeah, I don't, it's kind of the reverse, man. I think you would have to look at it as, you don't have to ask, where are they? I think you'd have to ask the question reverse, like, why would they be there? Right? It is a massive, massive, massive galaxy. So why would they be there? By the way, same thing with our friend from Costa Rica. Video sends in a currency I don't know, IDR RP. Does anybody know what currency that is? I'd like to see that. If you guys know what currency that is, please, a rupee. Shikser is saying rupees. Is that the Indian currency, rupees? Anyway, thank you so much, Video King. I appreciate that very much for sending that in, man. All right, let's see. Next up, let's see. Noah Drazen writes, just curious why you didn't like the ending of WrestleMania. The reason I didn't like the ending of WrestleMania is the same reason why I kind of don't follow wrestling anymore, because look, wrestling is drama, right? To quote Rob a little bit, there's a verisimilitude. You want a degree of verisimilitude with it, right? Like even when you're watching a soap opera, you want a degree of verisimilitude with it, right? You know you're watching drama, but still you want a little bit of a degree of verisimilitude to it. So Ann and I go to WrestleMania, and the thing that ruined it, they spend months building up this big match, right? Between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. They spend months, right? People fly in from all over the world to come and watch this spectacle of drama that they're going to put on, right? To watch this show. People have been saving up money all year. They spent thousands of dollars to buy tickets, to get hotels in LA, to fly all the way out here, all this kind of stuff. They pump it up for months and months and months and months and months and months and months, and they do all this kind of stuff, right? And then what did they do? They did the old, well, the bad guy had all these guys come in and interfere, and that's why the good guy lost. It's like, really? That's how you end the main event of WrestleMania? Like, all these people fly in and you do this old, massively overused thing. Because listen, I said when the match started, well, the way this is going to end is Roman Reigns' the other guys who are with Roman Reigns are going to run into the ring and they're all going to gang up on the good guy. In this case, it's Cody Rhodes. They're all going to gang up on him, and that's how Roman's going to win. And sure enough, that's what they did. And it's bullshit. Like, it's a total, from a drama point of view, from a showmanship point of view, it's so fucking lazy bullshit. Because again, like I said, we know it's artificial fake drama, just like a television show. It's all scripted drama, yes, but there's a lot of tropes in scripted drama that if we're watching a show and they keep doing the same trope over and over again, we're going to get tired of that show. It's like, come on, you're pretending that this is a real sporting event, right? That's the pretend. The pretend is that this is a real sporting event. Well, if you're pretending it's a real sporting event, do you think after 60 years of the bad guy having friends come into the ring and interfere, you think maybe they'll have some instant replay? Do you think maybe some official saw that happening and said, oh, no, wait, you don't win. You had 5 guys come in here and interfere. We saw it with our eyes. So just the very fact that they went back to that old, tired, pathetic trope really pissed me off. I thought it was a terrible, terrible, terrible ending to WrestleMania. It kind of ruined the whole event for me, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think it actually kind of ruined the entire WrestleMania for me. But anyway, that's just me. All right. Let's see. Joseph Philippus writes, thoughts on the Rodgers trade to the Jets. One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, for those keeping score, has only taken his team to the Super Bowl 1 time in his career. Tom Brady has taken his team to the Super Bowl 10 times. Might have been 11. We'll go with 10 times. Anyway, I honestly don't know. Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But last season was one of the biggest drops in quarterback productivity that there's ever been in the history of the game. What is he now? 39 years old? He's not the same Aaron Rodgers he was 6 years ago. I don't know if the Jets made a good move getting him. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully he'll be able to go to New York, put on a big show. Jonathan Cahoon is saying, yeah, Russell Wilson drop off was even worse. Yeah, Russell Wilson had a pretty big drop off himself, no doubt about it. Sorry, Denver. But I don't know. Look, it all comes down to how will it actually work out? How will it all work out? And I don't know. I don't know that the Jets are going to have a better season this season than they did last season. Hopefully we will. Dominic is saying, remember, he just won the MVP in 2021. Yeah, but he shouldn't have won MVP. Like, he won MVP over Tom Brady, who, as a quarterback, Tom Brady completed more passes, had a higher completion percentage, had more touchdown passes and more yards thrown. As a quarterback, he had all of those stats over Aaron Rodgers, and somehow magically Aaron Rodgers got given I feel like the NFL was just like, we're so tired of Tom Brady winning everything. We'll just give it to the next deserving guy. At any rate. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I hope, because the New York Jets have been a long-suffering fan base. I hope Aaron Rodgers is able to scrape together some of that old magic and really give the Jets a really good run. I think that would be a great story this year if he's able to do that. I just don't know. I don't know that he's going to be able to do that. Hope he does. All right. Next up. Red One Real Talk writes, curious if there's been any news on what's happened at Universal since firing their CEO. Haven't heard much since it was announced. No, I haven't heard anything either. And it's funny because that all happened right before CinemaCon. And it's like, oh, this is going to be a little bit, awkward when the Universal presentation. But you know what? Nobody at CinemaCon was even really talking about it. So I have not heard any more information about it. So yeah, we don't know. All right. Last question of the day. has come to us from RML Culture, who writes, unfortunately, Mint Mobile isn't available in the UK. Yeah, you know what really sucks too? Mint Mobile, which is still currently owned by Ryan Reynolds, they've announced that they're going to be selling Mint Mobile to T-Mobile. That hasn't all been finalized yet, but that's what's going to happen. But as of right now, Ryan Reynolds is still the owner of it. And Ryan Reynolds, of course, is the good Canadian kid. And yet, Mint Mobile is not available in Canada. It's not available there. Now, I'm sure they would love to have it in Canada. I'm sure they would love to have it in the UK. I'm sure there's a lot of regulatory stuff that they would have to deal with. But yeah, it does suck. It does suck that it's not there. All right, guys, you know what? I'm gonna take 5 more minutes. I'm gonna take 5 more minutes. If you guys who are still watching and you've made it all the way through to the end, thank you guys. If you guys have a question, go ahead, fire it in. Only send it in once. Don't start spamming it. But send in, if you got a question right now, I'm looking at the live chat. Go ahead and just put the question all in capital letters so I know you're asking a question to me and you're not just talking to everybody else in the chat. So I'm going to take just a couple more questions here. So let's see what we've got. Duke's saying, have you played Jedi Survivor? I downloaded it. I haven't played it yet. I watched like the first 20 minutes of the cutscene movie. So I'm not really into it yet. Hopefully I'm going to have a chance to do that soon. Keith Abbots writes, over under, we will get a Ms. Marvel season 2. I think that'll all depend on how the Marvels does. If the Marvels does great, and I don't know that it will, but I'm just saying if it does great, they may not want to move Kamala Khan back to the small screen. Let's see. Lakers versus Warriors tonight. Who you got? Is it tonight? Oh yeah, it is tonight. Man, I don't know. This series has been going back and forth, but if AD and LeBron are on their games, Golden State doesn't have an answer for them. I mean, you can only rely on Klay Thompson and Steph Curry to keep splashing 3 balls. Statistics just says they're not all going to fall. And that's the only thing Golden State really has going for it is Klay Thompson and Steph being able to heave up threes. And that's not going to work for you long-term because LA has them beat in every other area, right? They don't have anybody that can match against LeBron. Their big man does not match up against AD. Golden State does not have nearly as good of a bench as LA does. So I'm going to say LA in 6. I think LA wins tonight. Carl Jr. says, open spoiler discussion for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 tomorrow. I announced it on the John Campea Show today. Tomorrow, late afternoon, Los Angeles time, we're going to be doing an open spoiler discussion for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Let's see. Where are we at? Sorry, I'm just trying to, I'm only got time for one more, so I want to pick a good one. Where are we at? Oh, Michael T says, critic score for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 went up to 82%. Thoughts on second weekend drop? I think the second weekend drop of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will be a very respectable 56%. I think it'll be a 50. Now remember, you want your movie to be between a 50 and 60% drop, right? That's the acceptable range. Anything less than a 50% drop is considered amazing. Anything over 60% of a drop is considered pretty disappointing. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will come in around a 55, 56% drop. And if it does, then it's going to have really, really good legs. So we'll see. All right, guys. That'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you guys so much for being here and hanging out with me this afternoon. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those super chats. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported our channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so much for your support. Guys, don't forget to come back and join us again for tomorrow's installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks so much for being here, guys. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.